that there is hardly any legislation universally about these cyber crimes.
Surely.
Let's forget, for the sake of argument, that there is no legislation or very few laws available at United Nations level. But Pakistan and India collectively and individually can legislate certain laws, and they can set up a special force among their ranks, like law enforcement agencies, or they can set up a special unit in these law enforcement agencies who can identify and make a surveillance over these sites,
Right.
and at least they can take individual steps to ban these sites.
Abdullah, please stay with us. Right now, we're going to get you a video response that we got from security analyst from Karachi, Amir Mughal, and this is what he had to say regarding this issue.
To prevailing volatile situation in the region, we must pay attention to check how and why and from where these militant organizations are freely using social media to convey their message to all and sundry. And it is amazing, irony rather, that YouTube is banned in Pakistan, and several militant and sectarian organizations openly and freely using social media to propagate their hateful ideologies, sectarian ideologies, to hound the peaceful people of Pakistan. India and Pakistan both should establish a contact between themselves to check the unchecked use of social media during the process of any contact between India and Pakistan, to sabotage that process by spreading false news. And this is happening from India and from Pakistan as well on social media. This must be checked from both sides.
Can it really be possible? Is it really workable what Abdullah is suggesting and what Amir Mughal wants?
Well, on a theoretical plane,
Yeah.
it could be done.
How?
Whether we will be able to do it practically is a different matter altogether.
Right.
Because even on a theoretical plane, these are only two sovereign states. Now, two sovereign states can at best write a common code, a common treaty, and can agree to work together in terms of trying to fight against cyber terrorism. However, the fact remains that these two components of the two sovereign states, even joined together, are not having the complete control over all the technical aspects of the network that exists on the internet. And now we have an increasingly bigger problem at hand, which is that majority of the Indians or people in the Indian subcontinent are going ahead and leapfrogging into the mobile web. Today, as per the latest statistics, 61% of all Indian online users access internet only through their mobile phones. Now, in this scenario, where mobile web is coming so critically a center stage attention for all of us, it becomes even more difficult. How do we land up trying to come up with appropriate regulations? That's the reason we have found that in the last 1 or 2 years, countries have tried to agree and ink up certain bilateral treaties. But the fact is, given the fact that internet is in its own self a multilateral organization, and given the intrinsic architecture of the internet, it might be good, noble intention to proceed forward, but I will actually see some practical roadmap difficulties ahead in terms of even roadblocks as you go forward, because your information may not necessarily be only limited to be emanating from the computer systems and computer networks that are located in these two countries alone. Theoretically, it looks a fantastic idea. Practically speaking, I have some very strong reservations of how it can be effectively implemented, but that does not mean that undermines the commitment of both the nations to cyber terrorism. I think every sovereign nation needs to understand and is well recognizing the fact that if it is not going to condemn cyber terrorism, tomorrow the same cyber terrorism is going to potentially be used against its own sovereign interests in cyberspace. So I think I find a comity of interest amongst all the nations in this direction.
Right. All right. I'll just take you up on that because I want to ask you about whether the SAARC countries can all get together and do that. But before that, let me bring you another video response that we have from Amara Ahmed, who is an assistant web editor with the news from Lahore, and this is what she has to say.
Not only technologically more advanced than Al-Qaeda was, it is also using the social media more effectively, and not just for propagating their message but also for recruiting and for spreading their version of Islam. And we have seen that youngsters from Malaysia and Scotland, as you've seen those girls, they fell prey for this kind of propaganda. So Twitter and Facebook have been taking down videos or other content, blocking their accounts. That's not always possible, especially if the message is not violent. So what we need to do is perhaps we need to become more conscious users and to understand that there are people around there who can, who can attract our youngsters with this kind of message, but also we perhaps need another kind of narrative which is against the is and which informs people as to the problem there is and the kind of callousness that is there in Syria. So we have to bring the version from there as well. Simply blocking them or bombing them is not enough. So it's an ongoing problem, and we'll have to upgrade ourselves and our social media and our consciousness in order to fight it.
All right, that was Amara Ahmed, assistant web editor of The Nation. I apologize for my previous mistake. The Nation of Lahore. All right, Abdullah, practical difficulties, as Pawan sir said about what you're saying, though it's of course theoretically a brilliant idea. Let me ask you, I'm about to pose both of you that question. Do you see the SAARC countries really getting together in a unified manner to talk about this problem? Because we all agree that one has to at least recognize online terrorism as a threat to humanity. Do you think the SAARC nations could meet and at least begin to take some steps forward on that?
Yeah, I think SAARC countries can do this thing, but before going for a long run, I think SAARC nations individually should experiment these things at their home. Like Pakistan can go for a surveillance unit, a special surveillance unit would can, and legislation in this regard is first thing. If there is no legislation, I don't think there will be any kind of conviction or rest of the things.
Right.
So firstly, legislation, the reforms in the legislation, and then a practical unit which can surveillance on these networks and these sites and can identify or ban as may it consider fine.
All right, all right. Pawan sir, after what happened yesterday, the Mars Orbiter mission, we've become a leader in our own right. When do you see India becoming a leader when it comes to controlling cybercrime and controlling online terrorism like this?
Well, we have a long way to go, primarily because the figures, when you look at it, clearly show that we're all fighting a losing battle. $445 billion, that's the worldwide cost of cybercrime last year. And large quantum of cybercrime takes place in India as well. Well, it's a different matter altogether that cybercrime in India is grossly underreported.
Yes.
And the figures do not really show the correct picture. However, I believe the decks have now been cleared for India to work in the direction of becoming a leader in the digital and mobile ecosystem.
Yes.
The Indian government has already announced its Digital India program, which aims to convert or transform India into a knowledge economy by the time 2018. So I think give India about a few years, and by the time it's 2019, 2020, I would see India to be one of the topmost leaders in the efforts and initiatives of all programs aimed at regulating, minimizing cybercrime, both in the digital and mobile ecosystems.
So over the past few years, we've had people complaining about brain drain. I do hope that we don't lose our young men, our young talents to groups such as those, such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda, through their online propaganda. I think that is the best we can hope for.